one point we literally couldn't leave the four walls of our house because it was just too insane. It was very, very aggressive. He would bite, he would hit, he would scratch. I mean, I explained the other day, I was blue from my shoulder to my wrist. I was completely blue. But now Yona sleeps through. He goes to sleep. Sometimes he'll take like 20 minutes, but it's predominantly like 30 seconds at a time, 5 minutes at a time, and then he sleeps through. No sleeping aids.
I want to give people hope because I know that there is hope. And I know that when I first came to this program, I felt the complete opposite. There were definitely times I felt like giving up. There were definitely times where I'm like, why am I doing all this? Why am I killing myself with everything from staying up hours and hours way past when I should have gone to sleep, researching things. And then like, okay, well, we'll try this tomorrow. And then it was constant. Like I was constantly going. I feel like even in my sleep, I wasn't sleeping because my brain was like, what's the next thing we're going to work on? And there was no peace. There was no rest. So yeah, obviously my kids are going to respond accordingly. And it was chaos. It was chaos. My marriage was in shambles.
Am I even a good enough mom? Am I doing a good enough job for my kid? I was so deeply lost in that, and my identity was solely relied on how well I did as a mom and how well my children behaved in public. Because I don't know if any of you other moms experience this, but like anytime I would like dare to go out in public, like I just felt like all eyes were glued on me, like, oh, what's gonna happen now? And like there was an incident at a grocery store where like this was a total God thing. I pulled my baby out of the shopping cart, and then a second later he flipped the cart. And I was like, I can't even imagine what would have happened if my baby was in that cart while my son was having a moment and flipped the cart in the store.
We're going to do something completely new on the podcast today. The conversations that I'm going to share with you are conversations with moms who are currently in the turnaround process. They're going to share what that feels like, what it feels like when symptoms go away, what it feels like when there are symptoms they are still struggling with. What does it actually feel like to go through the autism turnaround process? What are the highs, the lows, the challenges, and some of the things that you need to know if you want to do the same. And then we're going to do something very exciting. We're going to take a look back at the recordings of the first conversations I had with these moms, because I kept them, because I knew that we would want to look back on that. The first time they called me desperate because they had done everything. They had all these symptoms. They weren't sleeping at night. They weren't able to leave their house. Child screaming all the time. And we were planning the next step. I wanted us to take a look back at how that felt, because that's probably the situation you're in right now. So if you're an autism mom with a child that's got persistent symptoms, you're wondering, what does it feel like to turn these symptoms around? What does it take? And how does it feel before starting that process and in the midst of being in that process? That's what we're going to talk about, and that's what I'm going to show you today.
I'm Hannah, and I live in the Midwest of the US, so up in Minnesota. I have 4 kids. My oldest is Abe, and he's 5, and he's the one that has an official diagnosis of autism. And I would say who I was before is somebody that was completely broken, searching for herself outside of who God says I am. And now I can feel the healing, and I can feel more peace, and I know whose I am now, that I am a daughter of God, and that I don't have to perform to earn love from him. So I started in the beginning of 2023. It was a complete lack of control of just my son and my emotions. You know, there were times when I felt like I was almost like, you know, the analogy of a Coke bottle with like the Mentos. Like if you put the Mento in, I was about to pop. Like there's just so much going on.
You're gonna have to excuse the noise in the background. My son.
That's okay.
Is on his wiggle car. Sorry.
No, that's what we are here for. You know, to be present with that.
I think anytime, especially in my childhood, with my dad, who is the one that I have trauma wounds with, that was really when it started. And I've done a lot of therapy and a lot of inner child work over the last few years.
I felt frazzled all the time, anxious all the time. There was just not any peace in my household. And, you know, and there was moments and days when I just was like, you know, Lord, this just feels so mundane. Like every day just feels mundane. It feels, you know, pointless. So I was in a lot of like depression and despair.
Now, notice this as we go back and take a look at Hannah before things started to click into place for her in the turnaround process. This is what happens to moms, and I cannot emphasize this enough. When things click into place spiritually and emotionally and practically, this is not something someone else can do for you. This is not something you can learn in a clinic. This is not something you can learn from another mom. You have to go through this process, and that's the work that we do together. And look at the way that she is changed on a cellular level, the way that she speaks, the way that she shows up, the beliefs that she has, the energy, the nervous system. And imagine being her husband and her children, the child with symptoms, in the presence of the Hannah before things click into place and in the presence of Hannah now. It is significant. Now, if you recognize yourself in the before version of Hannah, you might need some help, but we'll get to that. Look at this.
I'm afraid of what other people are going to say, and especially with autism, and in America with autism, like, oh my gosh, you say like you're trying to turn around your symptoms and somebody's going to like give you side eye or like tell you you're a crazy mom and your child is not going to heal, or, you know, things like that. So there's a lot of fear behind sharing, and even just talking with, I need help. Like, I don't know even how to talk with this about my husband. Like I said, like my chest will get tight and my throat will get tight. I can even feel it right now.
The change of perspective has been huge for me. I used to use Abe's like autism as a crutch a lot, where I kind of almost excused, oh, well, he's autistic, so, you know, this is why he's doing this. And I was always so anxious about other people's opinions of me as a parent, because he was so out of control. I mean, I couldn't go to the park with him, and if I did, I didn't know how he was going to behave around other children. I mean, he would throw sand in babies' eyes. And you know, he has been a verbal kid, and so he can speak. So like there's those things that like I'm like, I see the improvement. And he used to just kind of like repeat certain things for a while. Well, then it slowly became like, oh, you're actually having a conversation. Oh, you're actually like creating these beautiful little worlds, and like you're wanting to share that with me. You're wanting to draw about them and tell me about like the world that you've been in for so long, and now you're inviting me into this. Like I get to now see more of who you are. And you know, there's still times where I struggle, you know, and I have to train my thoughts, you know. And I think in the prayer meditation I was listening to with the soak stream that you put on the group, and I was listening to one about reforming or retraining our mind, rewiring our mind, that's the word. And one of the things that just popped out to me was that when we are lining up our feelings and emotions with truth, nothing else matters. Like that, like if your feelings are not, like they're valid to an extent, but they are no longer valid if they're not lined up with with scripture and the truth of God. And so for so long, I was like tied on other people's opinions of me and anxious about what other people thought about me and worried that people were going to like take my son away. Like that was the biggest thing. Like the biggest worry was that somebody was going to take my son away from me. And I like get really emotional about it because there was points where I was like, am I even a good enough mom? Am I doing a good enough job for my kid? I was so deeply lost in that, and my identity was solely relied on how well I did as a mom and how well my children behaved in public. Because for like, I don't know if any of you other moms experience this, but like anytime I would like dare to go out in public, like I just felt like all eyes were glued on me, like, oh, what's gonna happen now? And like there was an incident at a grocery store where like this was a total God thing. I pulled my baby out of the shopping cart, and then a second later he flipped the cart. And I was like, I can't even imagine what would have happened if my baby was in that cart while my son was having a moment and flipped the cart in the store.
Yeah.
And so there's now these things where I'm realizing like I don't want to be that mom anymore. And when I allow or entertain those thoughts of, oh, I'm not good enough or whatever, then I definitely go down that cycle. Because again, you know, we live in a fallen world. There's always the pull to come back to, you know, the enemy's like, come on back over here. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be there anymore. But I was just thinking about it. And the more I was practicing just living in peace and letting things go off of my plate, like, I don't need to do all this stuff. I don't need to accomplish all these things. I just need to be present.
Yeah.
Like that's what God's calling me to do. So there's like beauty in that. There's a lot of healing in that. And I've noticed that like just by showing up in the community and talking with the other moms and being vulnerable with the moms, and like just by sitting and listening to the prayer meditation, there was a time where I was like, Lord, I don't even know how to pray. So like, I'm just going to let Ninka pray over me, and I'm just going to agree to everything she's saying because I don't even know where to go with this. And now it's slowly blooming into this thing. And I'm so glad to be a part of like the Bible study and just deepening my faith and my walk with the Lord. And he's healing so many wounds. And I'm seeing that. And I know like my son's symptoms have ramped up as I'm working on the big, like pulling back of the onion.
Yes.
So like I'm seeing that now where I would not have seen that later. And I'm like, why are we dealing with this again? You know, but now I'm like, oh, okay, I know why he's dealing with that. And I need to be okay just to breathe through it and trust that God is going to work in his time.
Wow, I love that. If I say addicted to autism and self-sabotage, what would each of you say to that? Because those are some crazy words. And what do they mean to you?
I can go since it's on my brain. For me, it just meant that I had some sort of fake validation. You know what I mean? Like the world was gonna be, oh, okay, and oh, you can stay broken because you know that's what it feels like to be addicted to autism and to be addicted to the fact that you will never heal your child. It just is like, okay, well, we'll just stay broken. We're not going to fix anything. We're just going to let everybody else do that for you. And you as a mom, you're just going to continue to go down and down that deep hole of depression and guilt and worry and anxiety. So I definitely don't recommend it because it's not the place that I would want to be. And I'm so glad that God just pulled me out of that pit. But that's what it feels like, honestly, for me to be addicted to it.
And Tiffany, what would a benefit from that be? Because everyone would say, well, of course you want your child better. Of course you wouldn't be addicted to problems. What would a benefit be from staying in something you know really well, even though it's pretty hard? Because anyone who's got a child with autism or has had a child with autism will know that it's not easy. So what are we talking about here, Tiffany, for you?
I think it just becomes a pain that you're familiar with. So it's like, it's painful, but it's your best friend because it knows everything about you, and it's your comfort, it's your safety blanket. Because anything different from that is going to be a little bit harder. It is going to be about rewiring the brain. It is going to be about unlearning things and learning new things to put in its place. So it does require work. It does require discipline. It does require effort. And it's very easy in the fallen world that we live in to get worn out by life, to easily get tired again, to say, you know, I just don't have it in me today. I'm just gonna veg on the couch and scroll my phone and eat crap food. And because all those things are just easier. It's harder to say, oh, it's 6:30 in the morning and it's 40 degrees outside, but I'm going to go do my grounding and I'm going to go do my brain primers because I know that they're going to ultimately benefit my body, my life, my way of thinking, clearing my mind, and ultimately my child. So yeah, like Hannah was saying, the enemy is always trying to pull you back, and you just have to be that much stronger.
Yeah, exactly. When we move closer to healing and closer to God, that's where the attacks really intensify. So that can be a disappointment because you think, well, isn't it just supposed to be better and better, become better and better? That's not always the case. It's actually never the case. So it's a good sign when things get a bit more tense, because it means that the enemy notices that you are on the right track. So thank you for reminding us of that. The most hopeless time in your turnaround process so far, where you just wanted to give up, what happened and how did you escape that hopelessness? What about for you, Ilse, if you start?
Again, us sleeping. That was the big thing. We used to use sleep more. Even I was on the Telegram with you saying, "Can someone bring the sleep more from the UK?"
Yeah.
And I was trying to get it here. I was trying to get here. I spent the whole day. Anyway, ended up not getting it, and I started to pray. And I promise you, he slept through. I think he slept through that evening, and then another evening he didn't sleep through. And now he's been sleeping through ever since. Ever since. Although I just want to put on that, not just praying, but praying puts me to sleep, like within seconds. Like I start, dear Lord, thank you, I'm out. So I promise you, like I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, I left off somewhere. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And then 3 seconds later, I'm out. So my nervous system just it calms down completely. So I've learned. So whenever anything is stressing me out, I'm like, dear Lord, calm me down.
Yeah.
So God's honest truth, that was, and not that I wanted to ever give up, not that I wanted, but that was a huge, okay, my job is just to pray and lean more to that way. So that's what it said to me. And then things started to happen a bit easier.
Yeah.
To let go, basically. Don't be on the phone trying to get sleep more. Just let go.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about for you, sisters?
For me? What?
The darkest moment where you felt like giving up, and what pulled you back, Tiffany?
So for us, I think it's just been some of the really difficult financial times that we've been through in the last, trying to remember exactly when it began. So my husband lost his job due to COVID. I'm going to say that was back in 2021. He had been out of work for, I think he lost his job in January. He had been out of work for about 4 months, and he was diagnosed with cancer. So still hadn't found a job yet, and then decided to start going through cancer treatments because we went back and forth on that a little bit. So then he battled that for a year, still out of work. Unemployment had stopped. We were living on a wing and a prayer. And so, yeah, for us, it's just been just constantly trying to climb out of that, what ended up being like a 2-year pit. And, you know, God has provided. God has been so incredibly faithful. My kids have lacked for nothing, but there were certainly times where I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to keep up with the financial commitment to this program. So I just thank God, and I thank Minka for being so gracious and working with me in that I could see this through. And I wish I could say everything's great now. You know, Christmas is coming, so we're feeling the stress of that, because we're still at the point where, like, we're getting the bills paid, we're getting the bills caught up, but there's no extra right now. There's no, oh, we can, you know, I probably need a new car within the next year, but I'm just going to keep praying on that, because for right now, she's still running every day. So, but my God is faithful. My God is so faithful, and he's so good, and he pours out, and I know he wants us to not only have life, but have it in abundance. So, yeah, so my darkest times have been that.
Yes. Oh yeah, and I know you've had some dark times too as well, Hannah. What's been the most gut-wrenching moment for you where you pulled yourself out, or God pulled you out of that?
Yeah. So I started this course in the beginning of 2023 and was so confused, so lost. And then in the fall, in September, my husband worked um, on a leadership position in our church. It was a small church, and he was under the leadership of a pastor that was just not great. And it all came to a head. And I think it was, yeah, like the end of September, and our church just completely dismantled and shut down. It was so bad. And so my husband went through a lot of grief and depression, and I am very empathetic. So I feel a lot of that. So at that stage, I was like, well, God, like, we just lost our whole community. Like, we lost our support system. Like, we don't really have a whole lot of other people. So I don't know how to do this. And I, like, literally just kind of checked out with the Lord. I was like, okay, if you abandon us, then all right, I just need to check out. And then it was in January or February when I was talking with you, Minka, and I was just so lost and so hurt and so broken. And then it was just your simple encouragement to just get rid of the noise, that God just slowly started speaking to my heart again. And I mean, he always was, but I could finally hear it. And it was like the most beautiful time leading up to the birth of my fourth, you know, where I wasn't worried a lot about things, and there wasn't a whole lot of, you know, symptoms coming from Abraham, and things that he was struggling with were slowly going away, because at this point I started actually just daily getting up really early in the morning, as much as I didn't want to because I wasn't sleeping very well. But I was like, I want to just be with you, Lord. And so I just got up every morning for 3 months and just sat by my fireplace and opened up the Bible and prayed and got outside and grounded. And, you know, it was cold because I live in Minnesota. So it was not the warm time of year to do this. But it was so healing for me. And then I pivoted, you know, or went back down after the birth of my daughter because, you know, stuff. But then it was just like not as long. And the Lord just gently guided me back. And you know, I was so like, oh, well, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing the things that I need to be doing in this community. Oh, I'm not worthy of being in this community. There was a lot of like, I'm not worthy of this. Like, God, why are you letting me be here? Like, other people deserve this more than I do. Like, I guess I don't need this. But then it was just like the simple reminders of you know, Ashley and other moms in the community of like, you are worthy in God's eyes, and he will bring you out of that. And that was just, it was a good reminder for me and very healing for me. And God just started showing me a lot of things in the recent months of like, yeah, you've been putting a lot of things above me, and you have a lot of people that you need to like go and make it right with. And I was like, I don't want to do that, but I feel more deeply now, like the emotions are starting to flow again. Whereas for so long, I had just been like a head on a stick. And like not knowing my body and not knowing God's purpose and plan. And now I can see it and I just feel more peace. And yeah, there are days that really are hard.
Yes.
But it's beautiful,
And what are the biggest changes you've seen in yourself and your child?
I think for myself is that I'm like, I used to be reactive all the time. Like, no, don't do this. Stop that, all of the time. From the moment my kids woke up to the moment my kids went to bed, I was just not a nice mom. And, now I'm like, like very calm. There are times when I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm more and more learning how to be calm and at peace. And then with Abe, and this is beautiful and it makes me want to cry. He's communicating with me what he's feeling. Like, Mom, I feel like I'm having a hard day, or this is really hard for me, or I feel scared. And for me, that's huge because he used to just be so detached. And so I think when I started, I mean, obviously we can see it, but when I started to be more calm and in tune with myself and in tune with my feelings and emotions and letting myself feel those things, then he was also able to start doing that. It was like almost in the same time. And then he used to have like OCD like behaviors where he had to wear this certain pair of pants all of the time. He could not wear those. And if he didn't have them, it was a meltdown for like an hour and a half. And we don't have that anymore.
My name is Tiffany. I live on the East Coast of the US, in a little state called Delaware. My children, I have 4 children also. My oldest is 21. Then I have 13, 9.5, and just turned 6. My 9.5-year-old Noah is the one with the official autism diagnosis. And who I was when I came into this program versus who I am now. So when I started, I was so completely disconnected from myself. I just cut the phone line completely. Like there was no connection there. I'm sure my body was probably dying of thirst at times, and I would have had no idea. I just shut it off. I shut down. And also because of the issues that I was having in my marriage and feeling like there was no way out, I disconnected from that too. I just turned off all feelings that I had. I just did not allow myself to feel because everything was painful. So why live in that? Why feel that? So I just functioned on autopilot, took care of what needed to be taken care of, and praise God for bringing me into this program, because now I am so connected to myself. I pour into myself before I pour into anyone else, and I don't look at that as selfish. I look at that as necessary. So within moments of becoming thirsty, I'm getting a drink. If I feel even the slightest tingle that I need to pee, I'm heading to the bathroom. Everything else can wait. It's just really not that important. It's not, the house isn't going to burn down. Nobody's going to die if I run to the bathroom. It's all going to be okay. And I just have this overwhelming peace in my life. And I don't want to set anybody up for failure. There are always going to be bad days. It's life. We live in a fallen world. There are going to be things that happen unexpectedly that just knock your nervous system off its heels, and you find tools and you learn how to deal with those things. So that instead of staying in, a week-long depression, not wanting to get out of bed because somebody looked at me wrong in the grocery store, I can very quickly overcome whatever the day throws my way now. I have the peace of God. I have the peace of the Holy Spirit. And I also need to be disciplined in that by carving out time every day to hear his word, to sit in quiet and hear his voice. And me and the Holy Spirit are BFFs now. I ask him for everything and he gives me guidance, and he turns me away from the things that are not for me. And I love it. It's a great place to be.
So now if we take a look at the first conversation I had with Tiffany before she was peaceful, you sense that it's a different person. And this is what's going on when we are detached from our body, when we are not in a close relationship with God and don't understand His plan for us. But it's also what happens when we think that it's a child that needs to be fixed, that the symptom needs to go away, before us understanding what's the message behind this symptom. What is this symptom here to teach me, change in me? How is this waking me up? And that's something you can see clearly in someone's body language, voice, the way that we show up, the beliefs that we have about ourselves and our children. It is so different. That's also why she got into such a disastrous place with her marriage. So these children and these situations show us how detached we are from ourselves, and that we can only heal and change and understand our children and get the same type of peace as we have healed, changed, and understood ourselves and found peace with ourselves. So let's take a look back at that time.
I would say behavior-wise, and another big piece is so occasionally pica, occasionally we still have mouthing of paper, tissues, things that shouldn't be going in the mouth, and picking, like destructive type behavior. He has picked our couch apart. He will pick books, the bindings off of books. If even a little corner is peeled off, he will just pick the whole backing off the book. And so just things like that.
Who do I listen to? Trying a billion things. What's the truth? Everyone's got an opinion. And we do things, sometimes they work for a little bit and then they don't. And then that feeling when we know we are on track, we're listening to the right instructor, the difference between that confusion and that direction, describe that to me, and also what keeps you on track there.
Yeah. So I think like right before I joined this program, I very much had already done a lot of recognizing that all those other groups and support, this, that, and the other, Facebook pages, the whole nine, like it just was not for me. I would just start to kind of step back and look at the back and forth dialogue that people were having, and how everybody had an opinion, and some person's opinion could be so drastically different from another person's opinion, but everybody thought their way was the right way. And I just was like, these people are lost. These poor people are so lost and confused, and I don't need to be in this confusion soup mix here. So yeah, I mean, the more that I started this program, which for me was just like a healing journey, and then of course became more and more about my faith. And then it became very clear to me that I had almost made like that autism, how do I fix this thing, an idol above God. And it was, because that was my life, that was my focus. So yeah, just having God really shift that and say, I need to be number one, no idols before me, and then trust me, because I will fix all of this. And like you had mentioned about the toe walking, like how can I have peace knowing that we still have that as a symptom? And it's because I truly believe that everything will happen in God's timing. It's not going to happen according to my timeline. And I believe, just as the same way that I had to walk through that painful thing with my dog, God is still trying to show me something here. I've had a lot of things revealed to me already, but I'm by no means at the end of my healing road.
Just another couple amazing things that I've been seeing lately. So in the past, and I would say this has been a change that I've noticed probably just even within the last 6 to 9 months. But in the past, it was almost like his head would be so foggy that he couldn't comprehend a two-step direction that I was giving him at times. Not all the time. Sometimes he could follow it, but it still wasn't anywhere near as clear as it is right now. So like, for example, in the past, let's just even say 6 months ago, I would say, Noah, can you go grab mommy the pen off the top of the desk? So telling him what I'm looking for and where it can be found. And he would just get lost. He wouldn't really understand what I was trying to tell him. So inevitably I would have to get up and get it myself. Whereas, my 5-year-old could very easily follow that instruction. So now he just came into my room asking me for a very specific book of his that he was looking for. And I do remember straightening up his room a little bit yesterday. So I'm trying to think, okay, I know there's a couple different locations that I usually put books because we have so many of them. So I told him to check his bin. I said, did you check here? He said yes, so it wasn't there. I said, did you check the bookshelf in the back room? He went and looked there, came back, it wasn't there. I said, okay, let me rack my brain. And then I said, oh, I know. Check your bookshelf above your toy box. And so he went up there, and it's been about 15 minutes now and he hasn't come back, so I'm assuming he found it. But it's just amazing. It's just so, so amazing because it's just like having a neurotypical kid. He knew what he wanted. He asked me for it with a very clear request. And then when, we finally figured it out, he went and located it. So it's just really, really beautiful.
I feel lighter. Amazing. Feel such a kindness about me that I just want to pour out to everyone. Like I want to give people hope, because I know that there is hope. And I know that when I first came to this program, I felt the complete opposite. There were definitely times I felt like giving up. There were definitely times where I'm like, why am I doing all this? Why am I killing myself with everything from staying up hours and hours way past when I should have gone to sleep, researching things. And then like, okay, well, we'll try this tomorrow. And then it was constant. Like I was constantly going. I feel like even in my sleep, I wasn't sleeping because my brain was like, what's the next thing we're going to work on? And there was no peace. There was no rest. So yeah, obviously my kids are going to respond accordingly. And it was chaos. It was chaos. My marriage was in shambles. I was truly ready for divorce. I had already filed once, then we reconciled. Things were okay for a little bit. And then I filed again, and I was truly ready to divorce him that time. But there was also that part of me that felt, again, so hopeless because I'd been a stay-at-home mom for a decade. How was I going to now support 4 kids? Well, my oldest, she's now since moved out, but 3 kids. So it was just that constant battle of feeling like I've got to be here for all my son's needs. I don't want to put him in someone else's care, full time, especially not like a child care or anything, especially with his dietary needs and this, that, and the other. So like, I can't go back to work full time. So I just felt stuck. I felt completely stuck in this hopeless marriage. We were both miserable. So the kids were miserable. So yeah, just being able to turn that around, it just speaks to God. I can only him because
we're not able on our own. But so in that hopeless situation, researching everything, trying everything, what symptoms were you still dealing with?
So the biggest one, and honestly, I'll be candid, it's still there. He's still a toe walker. And so I haven't gotten to the bottom of that yet, but I do know that it's because I've got to do my journey first. I've got to work on me first. There are still layers to peel. So I'm in that process right now. So really the toe walking was the big one. We did still have some stimming, but I definitely got where that was coming from very quickly. It was linked to glutamate. So anytime, and I still see it, if he has, once in a while, I'll try something back in, like, okay, let's see if we can handle a little bit of this now. And then I'm like, nope, still can't.
Yeah. And people will say, because that's the way that the world works. Well, if he's still toe walking, you're not there yet. Why are you optimistic? And I've had conversations with you where you are literally on your floor, not wanting to do this anymore. There was no hope. You hated the process. It felt like just darkness, darkness, darkness. At some point, your dog also died in the middle of this whole process. What grabbed you out from that and snatched you out from that darkness? And how can you talk to moms who feel like that? Well, nothing works. What am I, I might as well give up, because if I'm not getting that reward instantly and all these symptoms are removed now, I don't want to do this. What can you say to moms who think like that?
I'll try to answer that without getting emotional, because you brought up my dog, Minka.
I know.
It still hurts, but I'm getting there. So a mustard seed of faith, literally, because I questioned my faith more than ever when that happened. I had never felt more abandoned by God, and I just was in so much pain, and I couldn't understand why it felt like he left me. And I actually did one of your worksheets. I don't remember how long afterwards, a couple months maybe. And one of the questions was, gosh, I wish I could remember exactly what the question was, but it was something like, how do you, oh my gosh, I wish I could remember. It was something about how do you know God is real, or something like that. And the answer that came to mind for me was like, I look at the faces of my children every day, and I know that I cannot deny God's goodness. I know that, he has given me some of the most amazing gifts, and I can't look at their eyes and say that God isn't real. Like, I look at them and I know he's real. So holding on to that mustard seed of faith and just saying, okay, God, like, I don't know what you're trying to do with this situation, but I'm just going to trust you. I'm just going to trust you, and I'm going to keep leaning into you, and I'm going to keep just searching your word. And I know that you're going to keep revealing things to me. And he has, and he does. And all I can do is just keep drawing close to him every day. And little by little, he is healing that brokenness and that hurt. I may never have the answer as to why she had to go the way she did, which was just horrific. But I know that there are horrific things that happen in this world that sometimes we just may not get the answers for while we're here. I still don't think that takes away from God's goodness. I think that horrible things are going to happen. He never said that this life was going to be easy, but he did say he was going to walk it with us. So, yeah, I just hold on to that. And, little by little, he's just showing me the amazing things that he does. And I do know one of the things that I talked about actually in the Bible study recently, I feel like if nothing else good could have possibly come from that horrible, horrible situation, it did bring me closer to him. It did put me back in, reading the word daily, getting my Bible out, because I was searching for answers. I needed to know why he took me through so much pain. Like, what are you trying to do here? Don't hurt the most vulnerable people around me. If I sinned, hurt me. But that's not how it works.
No.
Sometimes we have to walk through some really hard stuff. I think, he's probably still calling me to repent and search my heart. So that's where I'm at now with the Holy Spirit. Like, search my heart, because I know I haven't always been a good person. I'm striving to be now, but I know there's a lot of ugly in my past and probably things that I still need to account for. So that's the thing I'm walking through right now.
Beautiful point. And it's not like bad person, you're just a bad person. It's also catching ourselves when we feel like complaining, when we feel like battling against the plan, when we doubt that God has a plan for us. Those are the things that he needs to course direct. He needs to get us back on that narrow path. So thank you so much for sharing that, Tiffany. for you, Ilse, introducing yourself as who you were and who you are becoming, just a little bit about you. Would you share that with us?
So my name is Ilse. We live in Mauritius. We originally come from South Africa, but we moved here about 2 years ago. I have 2 little boys, both on the spectrum. Noah is 7 and Yona is 5. Yona is actually Jonah in Afrikaans. I know a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, it's actually Jonah.
Yes.
Anyway, so who I was, I can tell you what it felt like. I can't necessarily tell you who I was. I can tell you that I was very, very sad all the time because I had no idea what to do. Like I said, you had that feeling constantly that something was going to happen. I think I was in a lot of disbelief. I don't know if you guys experienced the same thing. Like, no, this is not really happening. Where's that little camera? No. Or it's going to come right. Somehow, miraculously, the boys are just going to grow out of this. Or I don't know, if you do. So that, I think to that extent, I was like that. I think I was very impatient because I was scared if they couldn't do something, then that will be bad for them. And then it's showing me that I can't help them. I can't be their mom. I can't do anything. So I would say I was impatient because I was scared. I don't think I was particularly nice either, Hannah, to be around. In fact, I know it. They used to call me Elsa.
In which way?
Well, there would always be a problem. Like when you say you make a problem, there would always be a problem. Not just with the boys, with anything. We would get X and I'd be like, okay, but we need Y and Z, because what if A is going to come back? I would definitely do that. And I would feel it all the time. And it felt like I said, if I'm not doing it, then nobody's going to do it. Then something is going to happen. Someone needs to be responsible for it. And it was anything and everything, really. Anything. And I mean, you've met Lo. Lo's like, it's all good. Everything will be fine. It's all good. And then I'm like, are you crazy? What is wrong with you? Like, you've got problems. Like, how do we even work? Like, what?
Yes.
But we do. We're very lucky. But funny enough, he's actually going through a lot now where he's questioning himself. So I don't know where, but in a good way. Like, he's asking certain questions. I would say who I'm now, way calmer. Way calmer. Like Lowe's even the other day was like, how are you staying this calm?
Let's take a look at the Ilse I met back when she wasn't sleeping. It was screaming all day long, and she was just exhausted.
So I would say with Yona, okay, so he's more severe. So Yona doesn't really interact with anything. He interacts with us, he gives love and he laughs, and if you talk to him, even if you say stuff like, I'll say, you're amazing, you're wonderful, I'll give him all kind of stuff, and he responds and he smiles and he gets a bit shy. But I mean, like, he won't play with a toy. He won't really play with a puzzle. He's got one little, those little latches board that he's kind of liked, but he hasn't really progressed in that either, to open it properly. So he doesn't interact, and joint attention is also quite limited.
And him and Noah don't play it all together.
It's all together.
Nothing.
Okay.
I would say with Yuna, that's probably the biggest things. With Noah's a bit more functional. I would say concentration and the ability to sit for a longer period of time. And because I think also you could say in your own words, but he also struggles to teach him because he'll sit for 5 minutes and then he'll run around and stim and
it's almost like he's in his own head, and it's a wonderful world, and he doesn't want to let go of it. He will come in and do a task, but it's with great, effort on my part, and then it'll be like 3 or 4 minutes. But he's very capable of doing it. He's very, very capable and very clever. And his engagement is also, I don't always think he understands what I'm saying to him. Like I'll say to him, okay, because he likes Lion Guard and dinosaurs. And then he'll tell me a story, and I also can't understand it. It's a lot of nonsensical stuff, but his story is there. He's having his world, he just can't convey it. And then I'll ask questions of his story, and he won't be able to really respond appropriately.
Okay. And it did you ever have a sense that one of them or both of them were there and then they disappeared, or has it been like this always?
No, like Yuna
was
you
there.
can see in photos up until year 1. He was, so you could see how active his brain looked, and then on our timelines in Google Photos, literally year 1, you could see his eyes hazy and this far off look. It was like losing a child. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So when Noah was always a little bit.
Yeah, Noah was always.
A little,
They always didn't sleep. But there was a difference. People actually thought Yuna was fully functional, neurotypical, until year 1.
At one point, we literally couldn't leave the 4 walls of our house because it was just too insane. Yuna I think the biggest thing with Yuna was the sleep. And it wasn't like he would go to sleep and just wake up and then he was awake. It was very, very aggressive. He would bite, he would hit, he would scratch. I mean, I explained the other day, I was blue from my shoulder to my wrist. I was completely blue. And we live in Mauritius where it's pretty hot and it's humid. We're on an island. And I play paddle. And I was, even in the middle of the day, I was playing paddle in a long sleeve, because at that point, people were probably going to start thinking that I was being beaten or something, because it was just so blue. Yuna would constantly eat, constantly. I mean, I couldn't leave the kitchen. He would just anything and everything. And at that point, we were making stuff. We weren't giving him gluten or dairy. We were kind of already doing, that kind of stuff. But we did give him a lot of almond flour, funny enough, which we only later learned which was a bad thing. And he would just constantly eat. So I'd constantly have to make food. He would wake up in the morning, scream, and you'd have to walk over him because you need to start making food because he's going to be hungry 2 seconds later. And then he would bite. He would start biting himself. And I think he's spoken. Like, you always kind of question yourself, don't you? Like, is it really? Did he really just talk? Am I going crazy? But I would say I'm 99.9% sure he said mommy, which is the first thing he said. Well, it's the third thing he's ever said. He said daddy away and juice and then mommy. So I'm hoping. So it's slowly but surely, but now Yuna sleeps through. He goes to sleep. Sometimes he'll take like 20 minutes, but it's predominantly like 30 seconds at a time, 5 minutes at a time, and then he sleeps through. No sleeping aids. We only do magnesium cream. We don't do anything else. He does still bite when he's very frustrated, like when I don't get what he's saying or something like that. Then he will like say, listen, it's his screaming. It's no randomness. And he's just peaceful. He sings now. I think I mentioned it as well. In the jungle, a wimbawe, and he goes, so he understands tune quite a bit. He started playing with cars and stuff yesterday, and him and Noah are, getting closer to each other in proximity. So that's huge for us, which has changed. And Noah also, there's more of a feedback loop. So it's more of a conversation where he'll tell me something and I'll, vice versa. For me, if I had to look back, the best thing I can explain is, even if you've had a baby and your baby wakes up and gives that scream, that feeling that shoots right into your heart. Do you know that feeling? I used to have that feeling pretty much all the time. I would say that's me. And then constantly, when you just give him whatever he wants, what does he need? What does he want? Just give him whatever. We need to do it. And I used to get very frustrated. Like, if it's not done already, then it's too late. If it's not instantly done. And I used to get very angry about that. Like, it had to be perfect, it had to be instantly done. Because if it's not instantly done, then it's chaos. And it was chaos. It was chaos. more how I've changed. Well, I'm not pacing anymore, as you can see.
Yeah,
So that's
and
a lot.
can you describe that a bit? Because that was, I think all of us come from a place of being someone, behaving like someone, thinking like someone, and feeling like someone we know we are not really deep down inside. It's not who God wants us to be. Tiffany, you spoke about that. That person, you're saying pacing. What type of person were you, and what was it like to be in your body as that person, and in your family as that person, Ilse?
I would honestly say I was constantly trying to get to everybody. I would constantly trying to put the lid on before it exploded. So I would pace up and down. So there was one thing. I'd try to get the lid on before it exploded, or I'd try to run away so I could just have a moment of peace. No, honestly, I would just try and run away so you can have a moment of peace. And I think at one point I said to Lauren, I feel like if I don't do it, then it won't get done, or it will be. I have to be Noah's voice. I have to be able to play with Noah, to show him to play, to teach him. And with you and I the same. If I don't play with them, then nobody will teach them.
Hey, this is Ninka. I just wanted to say to you, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this thinking, wow, I want to meet these women. I want to go through that process. I want to be change and achieve what they have become, changed and achieved. You can do that if we are a match, if we're fit. You can determine from these conversations that you need to be a certain type of person to feel like this is something you can and want to do, and to fit into the group and the community. So if you want to be considered for this, you've got to do the following. You've got to send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, and I will send you an application so that I can get to know you, to understand whether I feel like I can help you and whether you are a match to this amazing group of women. If you feel like these could be your sisters and you want to hang out with us and you want to achieve what they have achieved, chances are that you're being directed towards this type of work, deep work, to change symptoms like stimming, eloping, screaming, sleepless nights, picky eating, sensory issues, lack of development of speech, because those symptoms are what we are dealing with. So you can do that, or you can go to my website, barefootautismwarriors.com, click on the program and join the waitlist. If I have filled up all the spots when you're listening to this and you're too late, that's how you do it. So I hope to see you, because as you can determine, these women are my sisters. And if you're like them, I want to get to know you, obviously, and I want to be a witness to the changes in your life. Now, back to the podcast episode. The way that we go through this together is a constant readjustment and reminding each other, hey, what does it sound like and feel like and look like when we're on track and we're listening to God and it's Holy Spirit guidance? And what does it feel like and look like when it is the enemy that's got the last word or that's in control? And that is, it sounds simple, but I feel, I don't know if you would share some of your thoughts about that the whole autism recovery warrior mom community is also affected by this, by all these distractions. The mainstream world is affected by these distractions, where the enemy and the distractions come in and just keep us entertained or keep us away from God. So and feelings can be good, and feelings can be something that's distracting us. So for you, what experiences have you had where you felt like the hard times and the difficult feelings were God's way of shaping you, and where the feelings were actually a distraction, where we drown in feeling like victims, or we drown in negativity? I know, Hannah, you've been struggling with that too. Tiffany as well. It'd be interesting to hear your perspective on this.
Mine, well, it's funny, we were thinking about it today because if you guys go back, I don't know how it is where you guys are. When they give you the diagnosis, they say, don't worry. We've got the answer for you, but there's only a short amount of time. You've only got this amount of time, but don't worry, you're safe. Mm-hmm. And I remember when we got it, and we were like, okay, but let's do it then. They said, no, we have to teach you. Come in first. We have to teach you. The same place. So it's almost like they say, we are the answer, but there's only, they're making, you are dependent upon them, whoever this is. This wasn't just one place. We had multiple places. And you could quickly see that they don't really know what they're talking about, because somebody said to us, take your child to this school. I phoned, that school didn't even exist. It did not even exist. And there's only a short amount of time. And what you have to do is this and this and this. And it's always imminent. And there's always no time. And, if I knew back then with Noah, when he was diagnosed when he was 2, 1.5, 2. So it was quite early. And already they were like, no, it's not going to go well. It's not going to go well. Crazy. And then I thought, okay, now I need to be the best mom there is in the world. So what I wanted to say about that is there's so many people giving their opinions, and it's always imminent, and there's only a short amount of time, and there's always a lot of pressure, and you always need to do a thing. But that's so many different stories. But we've only got one truth. One truth. Now, if I can say what I feel now versus what I feel there, I'm way calmer, because I don't know if you remember that conversation we had, Ninka, where I said, no, I can't not be in control. I have to be in control.
Yes.
Now, I'm quite happy not to be in control. It's wonderful. Yeah. So that I would say there was always, with what we'd gone through, there was always, don't worry, but there's not enough time. You've only got a short, I keep on showing this because everybody always showed this to us. There's not enough time. And he needs so many hours of this, so many of this, but there's only this amount of time. Mm-hmm. And from now, to me, I feel like there's my whole life. That's the amount, my whole life, or his whole life, whichever comes first. That's the amount of time that I have.
Yeah, and when you look into the future now, when you came in and there was no sleeping, there was all this violence and constant eating, constant pacing, like you're in this stress PTSD situation. When you look at the future now, what's possible now when you look into the future, hope-wise?
I don't even know. I'm quite excited to find out, because I honestly, like, sleeping for us was just, I'm talking about years of no sleep. I'm not talking about a month of no sleep. I'm talking about years. So for me, if like Tiffany, you were saying, you just look in your children's eyes. For me, that my child is sleeping, that is 100%, 1,000, with nothing. With nothing. No melatonin, just magnesium. That child is sleeping. And obviously a lot of that comes from now he's in a good mood. For me alone, I promise you, since he started sleeping through every single morning and every single night, I'm going to come thank you. And I mean it. I mean it, because I've been there where you don't sleep, where you sleep for 2 hours and you cry. I mean, so many times I've been in this living room crying next to my child that is screaming and crying, and I can't do anything.
Direction. Describe that to me, and also what keeps you on track there.
There's now these things where I'm realizing, like, I don't want to be that mom anymore. And when I allow or entertain those thoughts of, oh, I'm not good enough or whatever, then I definitely go down that cycle. Because again, we live in a fallen world. There's always the pull to come back to, the enemy's like, come on back over here. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be there anymore. But I was just thinking about it. And the more I was practicing just living in peace and letting things go off of my plate, like, I don't need to do all this stuff. I don't need to accomplish all these things. I just need to be present. Yeah. Like, that's what God's calling me to do. So there's like the beauty in that. There's a lot of healing in that. And I've noticed that, like, just by showing up in the community and talking with the other moms and being vulnerable with the moms and, like, just by sitting and listening to the prayer meditation. There was a time where I was like, Lord, I don't even know how to pray. So like, I'm just going to let Ninka pray over me, and I'm just going to agree to everything she's saying because I don't even know where to go with this. And now it's slowly blooming into this thing. And I'm so glad to be a part of like the Bible study and just deepening my faith and my walk with the Lord. And he's healing so many wounds. And I'm seeing that. And I know like my son's symptoms have ramped up as I'm working on the big, like pulling back of the onion.
Yes.
So like I'm seeing that now where I would not have seen that later. And I'm like, why are we dealing with this again? You know, but now I'm like, oh, okay, I know why he's dealing with that. And I need to be okay just to breathe through it and trust that God is going to work in his time.
Wow, I love that. If I say addicted to autism and self-sabotage, what would each of you say to that? Because those are some crazy, crazy words. And what do they mean to you?
I can go since it's on my brain. For me, it just meant that I had some sort of fake validation. You know what I mean? Like the world was gonna be, oh, okay, and oh, you can stay broken because you know that's what it feels like to be addicted to autism and to be addicted to the fact that you will never heal your child. It just is like, okay, well, we'll just stay broken. We're not going to fix anything. We're just going to let everybody else do that for you. And you as a mom, you're just going to continue to go down and down that deep hole of depression and guilt and worry and anxiety. So I definitely don't recommend it because it's not the place that I would want to be. And I'm so glad that God just pulled me out of that pit. But that's what it feels like, honestly, for me to be addicted to it.
And Tiffany, what would a benefit from that be? Because everyone would say, well, of course you want your child better. Of course you wouldn't be addicted to problems. What would a benefit be from staying in something you know really well, even though it's pretty hard? Because anyone who's got a child with autism or has had a child with autism will know that it's not easy. So what are we talking about here, Tiffany, for you?
I think it just becomes a pain that you're familiar with. So it's like, it's painful, but it's your best friend because it knows everything about you, and it's your comfort, it's your safety blanket. Because anything different from that is going to be a little bit harder. It is going to be about rewiring the brain. It is going to be about unlearning things and learning new things to put in its place. So it does require work. It does require discipline. It does require effort. And it's very easy in the fallen world that we live in to get worn out by life, to easily get tired again, to say, you know, I just don't have it in me today. I'm just gonna veg on the couch and scroll my phone and eat crap food. And because all those things are just easier. It's harder to say, oh, it's 6:30 in the morning and it's 40 degrees outside, but I'm going to go do my grounding and I'm going to go do my brain primers because I know that they're going to ultimately benefit my body, my life, my way of thinking, clearing my mind, and ultimately my child. So yeah, like Hannah was saying, the enemy is always trying to pull you back, and you just have to be that much stronger.
Yeah, exactly. When we move closer to healing and closer to God, that's where the attacks really intensify. So that can be a disappointment because you think, well, isn't it just supposed to be better and better, become better and better? That's not always the case. It's actually never the case. So it's a good sign when things get a bit more tense because it means that the enemy notices that you are on the right track. So thank you for reminding us of that. The most hopeless time in your turnaround process so far where you just wanted to give up, what happened and how did you escape that hopelessness? What about for you, Ilse, if you start?
again, us sleeping, that was the big thing. We used to use sleep more. Even I was on the Telegram with you saying, "Can someone bring the sleep more from the UK?"
Yeah.
And I was trying to get it here. I spent the whole day. Anyway, ended up not getting it, and I started to pray. And I promise you, he slept through. I think he slept through that evening, and then another evening he didn't sleep through, and now he's been sleeping through ever since. Ever since. Although I just want to put on that, not just praying, but praying puts me to sleep, like within seconds. Like I start, "Dear Lord, thank you, I'm out." So I promise you, like I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, "I left off somewhere. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." And then 3 seconds later, I'm out. So my nervous system just it calms down completely. So I've learned. So whenever anything is stressing me out, I'm like, "Dear Lord, calm me down."
Yeah.
So God's honest truth, that was, and not that I wanted to ever give up, not that I wanted, but that was a huge, okay, my job is just to pray and lean more to that way. So that's what it said to me. And then things started to happen a bit easier.
Yeah.
To let go, basically. Don't be on the phone trying to get sleep more. Just let go.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about for you, sisters?
For me, what?
Tiffany? The darkest moment where you felt like giving up, and what pulled you back, Tiffany?
So for us, I think it's just been some of the really difficult financial times that we've been through in the last, trying to remember exactly when it began. So my husband lost his job due to COVID. I'm going to say that was back in 2021. He had been out of work for, I think he lost his job in January. He had been out of work for about 4 months, and he was diagnosed with cancer. So still hadn't found a job yet, and then decided to start going through cancer treatments, because we went back and forth on that a little bit. So then he battled that for a year, still out of work. Unemployment had stopped. We were living on a wing and a prayer. And so yeah, for us, it's just been constantly trying to climb out of that, what ended up being like a 2-year pit. And God has provided. God has been so incredibly faithful. My kids have lacked for nothing, but there were certainly times where I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to keep up with the financial commitment to this program. So I just thank God, and I thank Ninka for being so gracious and working with me in that I could see this through. And I wish I could say everything's great now. Christmas is coming, so we're feeling the stress of that, because we're still at the point where, like, we're getting the bills paid, we're getting the bills caught up, but there's no extra right now. There's no, we can, I probably need a new car within the next year, but I'm just going to keep praying on that, because for right now, she's still running every day. So, but my God is faithful. My God is so faithful, and he's so good, and he pours out, and I know he wants us to not only have life, but have it in abundance. So, yeah, so my darkest times have been that.
Yes. Oh yeah, and I know you've had some dark times too as well, Hannah. What's been the most gut-wrenching moment for you where you pulled yourself out, or God pulled you out of that?
There's little things here and there. His attention span is amazing. I'm always impressed by how long he can sit and do something on a table and not have to have me monitor him. So yeah, there's just a lot that it has been healing, and God is working on. And yes, there are times when he regresses, but I'm just gonna hold on to that, because that's what's giving me a lot of hope, is that God is moving and working and healing my heart and my son's heart.
Yes, and let's just remind moms out there listening that regression is a sign. Oops, it's my son just calling me here. forgetting that I have a call. Regression is not a sign that we are not on track. It's a sign that we are ready for more depth. We are ready for more understanding. We are more ready for more direction. And the expectations also ramp up. So God only gives these huge jobs to those of whom he's got great plans for, those he's got great plans for. So we learn more about our own bodies, our own parenting. We learn more about God's plan. We learn more about the triggers that are giving our children symptoms, and we learn more about what do we use to adjust it in the physical realm as well when it comes to nutrition and lifestyle adjustments. So, such an important point. I would like to finally just ask all of you, when it comes, because we're in a season now for change. We are rounding up a year. We are opening up a whole new chapter, a whole new year's right there in front of us, with all the hopes and all the possibilities of a new year. For you, when we say that healing ourselves, because that's what's come up again and again and again, is an important part for us to look into the future and not think, okay, if I die, it's going to be a disaster, but we can actually see our children changing. So when you look into this new year, all these new opportunities, what's important for moms who don't know about this connection to know about healing ourselves and our walk with God, self, and others in that context? Tiffany.
I would just say that there is hope, I can't force anyone to get in the word of God. All I can do is speak to what it's done in my life, and hopefully lead by example. I hope that I lead by example with my children. I hope that I lead by example with everyone that meets me. But it can be so simple as, like, I was standing in my bathroom yesterday, and I still do the thing where I check in with my body. I don't know if we're supposed to do that or not. I just still do it because it feels right.
Yes.
And everything I do is spirit led. So I'm like, spirit tells me it's good, I'm going to do it. So I just said to myself, how am I feeling right now? And the word that came to mind was power. I felt powerful in that moment. And I had just come from church, so I was filled with the Lord. And but then God said to me, in that same breath, he said, but with power comes great responsibility. Heavy emphasis on the great. Like, this is a huge job. I think bigger than in our human capacity we can even really fully grasp. But we were made for this. And if that doesn't light a fire in you, I don't know what will. We were made for this. God
Yes.
chose us for this sacred work, as Ninka says. And it is. So I just hope that that message would fill someone with hope and let them know that God sees you, God loves you, God sees you in your brokenness, and he loves you anyway, despite all of it, because he already knew that about you, and he already knew you were going to walk this path. But he wants to hold your hand. He wants you to reach out and take his hand. And there's so much promise at the end of that road. Beautiful.
That is so important, Tiffany, because he sees his daughter. And if we don't treat that daughter with respect and nourishment and peace, if when his daughter, which is you, says, I need rest, I've had enough, I need love, and we're just hammering, slamming negative words, self-resentment, loathing, hate, not allowing ourselves to sleep or rest or set boundaries, that's not the way that God loves us. And we know in our hearts how we're supposed to be loved by God. And often we are the ones who are the most harsh parents. And that's, I really feel that he's taught me to stop being a slave, to stop being a sex slave, which is what I was in my youth when I didn't know the Lord at all. I thought, I need to sell my body. I need to sell out. No boundaries here. Just come, take me, use me. If I can get a little bit of love and attention, have my body, have my life, have my future. And I think we need to understand that is not God's plan for us. That is the enemy constantly talking in our ear about how worthless we are, and we need to be slaves to work, to looks, to exercise, to recovery, to practitioners. And this is our Red Sea moment, this autism recovery, and he is going to part the sea for us, and he wants to take us through. And we do say, like Moses, me? I'm supposed to do this? It's not possible. And he will show us the way, but we do need to lean in faith. So I love that. I love that share so much. Thank you, Tiffany. What about for you, Hannah and Ilse, to send out a message to moms about that type of love? What's important for you to say to moms out there who do not feel worthy and do not feel loved and do not feel hope?
For me, I think the moment that I started living in more peace, and what I mean by that is like taking off the expectations that I had for myself that were not of God, and taking those away. The moment I started living in peace with myself, with my children, with my surroundings, with my circumstances, was the moment that I actually started to experience that healing. Was the moment that I actually was able to start seeing the hope that God has set out for me. And I know that, I struggled for a very long time with daddy wounds and not being able to view God as a father who loves me so very much, who calls me worthy despite of what I bring to the table. It's almost like he just wants me there. He does want me there because he loves my company, because he has, chosen me, adopted me. And so because of that hope that I have in my faith with the Lord, and knowing that he does see me as worthy, he's been pulling down a lot of walls, but just the reminder that I don't have to look a certain way, come to the table with a well thought through, here, Lord, here's all the good things I've been doing this week or whatever. I can just simply be, and he loves me in spite of myself, And so the more that I learn to walk in his peace, not the peace of this world, because it's so fleeting, and when I learn to measure up my feelings and emotions to the truth of his word and not that of the world, that's the only time that I feel like I've actually truly been able to see the healing and to see the beauty of each and every day, and getting out in his creation and just being still. And I love that verse, and I'm not going to remember where it's from, but the be still and know that I am God has been something that God has really been working on me, because I'm such a busybody and a cortisol recovery mom, and I just got to do all the time and perform. Yeah. But the moment I stop and I step back, it's when I feel, that healing.
Amen. I love that so much. And Ilse, I remember the other day in the community, you said you felt so much compassion for everybody. You wanted to pray for everybody. And that compassion was rooted in increasing compassion for yourself and the traumas and wounds that you carry, that we all carry. Could you round up this conversation by sharing that change?
The compassion for myself.
Yes.
With compassion. Do you want me to take the instance?
It's just interesting maybe to talk a little bit about why this healing of ourselves and the way that we treat ourselves, why that is even important, and how it actually affects the way that we relate to our children and other people.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Well, I think if just a quick one, if you think at everybody in this community, we actually had one of the ladies saying she's so alone, so many people don't want to help her, nobody wants to reach out. We do actually have someone right there, don't we? We actually do, but it's not our way. It's not our understanding. So it's very difficult to do that. But we actually do have somebody that's there all the time. And I think in terms of compassion for myself and compassion for you guys, if you're just listening to your story, and why it's important is I'm sure not one of us would speak to anybody the way that we speak to ourselves, or the expectations that we have on ourselves, what we expect someone to do. Like Lo, I'll share something Lo said was a couple of months ago. He said he had a dream. It's actually a terrible story, but it's true. He said he had a dream that he had a stroke. And in this dream, I said to him, "What are you doing? Get up. You need to get up. You need to stop. What are you doing?" And he said to me, and he looked at me when he was saying it. And I was like, "It's terrible, but it's probably true." I probably would have said to you, "Get up. You need to go and do something." And that's what all of us do. Yeah. I mean, listening to your stories, I couldn't fathom being in that position. If I have to listen to my own story, just to have compassion, having a child. I said to Lo, you know, our kids' school, their childhood is almost over, and I've never seen my youngest play with anybody. I've never seen that. I've never experienced a little. To me, that just makes me want to cry now for everybody. So that kind of compassion, which allows you then to fill up and have another feeling, isn't it? It kind of flows, if I had to put it like that. Listening to everybody's and then reflecting on your own situation and what you've been through yourself, and then realizing, well, if you can't change, how do you expect your child to see you? Like just how we see Jesus or God, how do they see us? You know, because we are. I don't mean it in that perspective. I mean it as a parent. Yeah. They mimic us going forward. I hope that answers your question. I brought it in nicely.
That makes a lot of sense, because the way that they relate and orient themselves in the world is the way that they see us relate to ourselves, to our partners, to our past, to God. And so we cannot take that out of context. So I think that's a really beautiful sentence to end this conversation with, is our children, in so many ways, they play out what's going on in our lives and what's on our hearts, what decisions we have made and the decisions we haven't made yet, the things that the missing links, and also the path. So in that way, I really feel that our autistic children are ambassadors for the Lord, because they are there showing us He loves them so much, and they're there, but they're hanging around here to show us the things that we still need to work on. So that's a big job. And I can see now with my own son, who's 25, how much of a job he's taken on to show me all these blind spots in my life. And I'm so deeply grateful for that, because that for sure, that has not been easy. It's incredible, the kindness and the gentleness that he has, despite all that. And with the friendships, they came later. So the more we work on ourselves, the more their world expands. Also because they don't have to focus so much on thinking, is she there? Can she lead? Can she take care of herself? So that I can actually lean in and just be a child. Because we don't have the expectations of autistic children, where we think we can't set boundaries because they already have all these problems, and we are not dealing with our own things, so they don't have the space and the time to develop and have tantrums like other children, bounce up against our values to test them and test us. So let's make space for that as well. So with that said, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this conversation, for sharing your hearts, for sharing the things that's been difficult, your wounds, the hope, your relationship with God, and just being an example of, yes, we cannot do any of this without God. So let's try and minimize the distractions for moms orienting themselves towards all the distractions out there. So God bless you so much. Is there anything that you wanted or wish to say that you haven't said or we haven't covered?
I
Yes.
did just have one quick thought come to mind while you were talking, Ninka. Just one other thing that I would say to any new moms or any moms who are just not sure where to go right now, just maybe even not that connected with their faith yet, but speak life over your children, because your words hold so much power. I follow a girl I actually know. We went to school together. Her autistic son is now 19, and they have a whole Instagram channel together. It's cute and all, don't get me wrong, but her mentality towards him and his life is so heartbreaking, because it's always, he'll never do this. He's never going to get married. He'll never move out. I'm going to be his caretaker for the rest of his life. And that's true, because what you say is true. Every word that leaves your mouth is as true as you believe it to be or not to be. So, I mean, you just have to speak life over your children. I heard a thing on the radio this morning about a doctor told a little 4-year-old girl that she would never walk. And it was like their miracle story of the day. And she walks, because it's not about what doctors are going to say that this child is going to do. There is no can't in his vocabulary. There is no never in his vocabulary, because he is the doer of impossible things. So speak life over your children, because if you believe it, they're going to believe it, and anything is possible for these babies.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I love that. And with that said, thank you so much, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Go to barefootautismwarriors.com/podcasts with an S/188 for this episode if you want to share it with someone, and also to look at the pictures of these moms who are my family now, the moms who have transformed their lives and their children and now are transforming other moms' lives by sharing their story and what God has done in their lives. So thank you so much for being part of this community. Go and talk to me on Instagram, Ninka Bernadette Mauritzson, and send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com, if you have similar issues that these moms have solved in this deep work that they have completed by the help of God. If you want to talk to me about that, send me an email, contact@barefootautismwarriors.com. Please rate this podcast. If you would give me a review, it really means the world to me. I read it, and it makes me more likely to reach moms who are now desperate and have no hope and get no help, just like these moms were before they started this process. So give me some stars wherever you're listening to this podcast, and a review would really mean a lot to me. I would love to hear from you on Instagram or via email what you think about this episode, and give me ideas for new episodes or ask me a question. I really love to help, and I really love to hear from you. So I hope you'll subscribe to this podcast so that you'll get notified. I hope you'll go to my website, barefootautismwarriors.com, for all the episodes that I've recorded so far. We are one of the top podcasts in the world on this topic. So if you need information, that's a place to be. See you next time.